This is Terry Kurtz online reporting on Victor Valley, High Desert, and Mojave River Valley events, activities, entertainment, sports, and history. On March 12th, the Apple Valley Optimist Club roasts Assemblyman Thurston Smitty Smith in their annual fundraising banquet. Terry Kurtz Online takes you back to the Optimist roast of Tom Schibush, including roasting segments from Chips stars Larry Wilcox and Robert Pine.
But he is a very, very accomplished actor, and he does a lot of live plays, too. So, without further ado, Robert Pine.
I have a feeling this is for you up here. We have to see your every reaction. So, move those large guns in your executive. Alright, the man of the hour. Mr. Tom Schibush. You won't fall off. Got his ever-present beer in his hand. You know, every time I come up here, Tom says, please welcome Randy in.
Thank you, Bob. And Tom, hi Tom. I met Tom 30 years ago. I was, you know, at that time, 30 years, that's a long time. You were a child. I was close to that. I was the honorary mayor of Apple Valley, and at that time, I was the youngest ever honorary mayor. And I held that title until 1985 when Tom took it away from me. Thanks, Tom. But I've been a good friend of his for all these years. And, you know, it was funny, when I met him, he was at Apple Valley High School, he was the senior class president. I was in Las Vegas for a couple of years. I came back. He was still going to Apple Valley High School.
Well, the teachers found Tom was very interesting. I didn't have Tom in class to begin with because I only had the students who could read and write. But eventually we did Cindy, Tom to have as a student. And when he was ASC president and senior.
Good evening. I know you're all tired, and the last thing you need is some actor up here to indulge yourself with a little comedy, so I'll try to be brief.
Are you intimating anything better?
Say again?
Are you intimating that other actors have been up there?
No. The other actors were great. Anyway, you know, you ask yourself, what do you say about a man that's loved and respected and revered by everyone? I can start by saying that it sure as hell isn't this guy. I mean, how do you get a name like Tom Schibush? Somebody said.
Your mother's name was Gladys.
That's a little ironic. Tom Schibush, based on his own activity, you know. But his mom said when he came out of the bush, she looked down there and she said, "Oh my God." She had to have an episiotomy that you never want to have. That head came out so big. The big old football head came out, and she looked at that poor kid and said, either he's part of Eric Estrada or married to an alien, something wrong. That's when Tom began his philanthropic work. He was on this poster for a long time for birth control. Tom was always kind of a runt, as somebody said earlier. He was a small little guy. And when he was about 10 years old, he used to work at the dog pound here. People would come in and look for dogs and then look at Tom and say, how big does he get? You know, Tom, he always asks Robert, and Robert's been so kind to do his March of Dimes walks in the past, and I've done a few of them. One time, the very first time he asked me, he asked myself and my wife to come. Marlene, who was an Olympic track and field athlete, and she will never come again. said, why? Why don't you want to do the March of Dimes? He said, are you kidding me? Tom doesn't know the first thing about a stopwatch. They measure the March of Dimes when you walk with Tom with a calendar. I won't tell you any more of these corny jokes, but I'm just going to share with you a couple stories. You know, my life, I've touched almost every key on the piano board. I won't bore you with that. It's been interesting highs and lows and fascinating stories that test your heart, your soul, and your belief in your integrity. You know, I've always been kind of amazed at this guy. You know, he just is always there with his heart and his spirit. I used to have a little airplane. It was called an Avion, and I was real proud of it. It looked like a little fighter jet, had a cockpit that slid back, and Robert used to have this really cool old Porsche. We thought we were pretty cool when these things were. And it didn't have any paint, because I took the paint off, because paint has weight and slows an airplane down. I took all the interior out, because I didn't want any interior, because that slowed it down. Put a big engine in it, changed the angle of the incidence of the wings, three-bladed prop, and I flew into Cedar City, and some guy in Cedar City come running out and said, hey, aren't you the guy from Chips, Larry Wilcox? Yeah. What are you doing flying this old piece of shit? Dude. So that was my airplane. And so when the guy says he has an airplane, there's an art of obfuscation there, obviously. What he doesn't say is more important. So I used to fly that old Avion up here to Victorville. You know, in your youth, sometimes you have this voracious appetite to do things and excel and beat metrics. And how many people did you see, Tom? And how many did you interview? And how many people did you sell? And how many people did you do one-on-ones? And all those report cards of all those businesses that we were going to grow to the biggest thing in the world. And I'll tell you one story. One night we were out in Victorville and it was dark and foggy. And Tom, maybe Robert was with us this one time. And they told me that this guy, Tom's going to come with him. Tom? Who's Tom? Tom Schibush, he's coming. He's a good guy. And he has a lot of network. And so, okay. And I said, can he, you know, my airplane, I took all the steps off because that's parasitic drag. So if you can't jump up on my wing, you can't get in my airplane. And so that's too bad. You know, and my wife used to get really mad at that. So here comes Tom, and I see him hobbling out there to my airplane. I'm going, oh my God. You know? So now I'm looking around at the airport, and the airport security's looking at us because we got to lift this jackass up on the wing. We get him up on the wing about half up there, and now he can't get up off the wing. And it looks like we're carrying some drunk into the airplane. Finally, we get him up. He puts one leg over into the cockpit because you have to slide the cockpit, and he can't lift his other leg up because it's cramping by then. Tom, you got to get in this airplane. You're going to fly with one leg hanging out in the cockpit. We finally got him in, and we went on many meetings on that old airplane together and met a lot of great people. Recently, I had this issue back in Florida that very big issue. I might as well just tell you. I had paid a commission to a gentleman that I thought was a legal commission. And for all your edification, make sure who and how you pay commissions. Commissions, if you pay to a pension plan, and somebody mentions that what they're going to do with that commission is called a kickback. And I told my attorney, well, that's how we always pay it. It's commissions. No, that's a kickback, and that's illegal. And that's 20 years in prison. So if you'll plead guilty, Larry, you'll get 5 years. I started crying, literally. But I won't wallow in all of that. To make a long story short, they let the bad felon here off on probation. So I asked Tom to come back and be one of my many witnesses. We had 60 letters of exemplary life and contributions that we've done to society. Poor Tom jumped in an airplane at midnight, flew all the way to Florida on my behalf. My heart cries and weeps, and we're so grateful for what he did. I went before that judge and I cried like a little boy and apologized because you don't go to court and tell them you didn't know anything. Ignorance isn't a plea. And Tom got up there and gave a great speech on my behalf, as did some other people that flew expression of something that I was taught in the Marine Corps in Vietnam called loyalty, sempre fidelis, always faithful. And so I say to you people, I won't bore you anymore this evening. I thank you all for giving your charity tonight to Tom's heart and the representation of your spirit to mankind. And tomorrow we may not be here. Next week we may not be here. I love that old Christian saying that you can't govern your country, you can't govern your state, you can't govern your city. Sure as hell can't govern anything if you can't govern yourself. And so I ask all of you to continue to govern yourself. I thank you for being here this evening, and I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be Tom's friend, and anything that I can do for him in the future, in any piano key that I can step on behalf of you people, I'll do it. God bless you. Thanks for your evening.
She was the youngest. She never optimist. Excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom right now, right back. So he became the youngest optimist internationally.
Did he drink beer then too?
No. In fact, excellent question, David. Because at that time we actually had to make up a few. We had to make up a few names because we had some new members. They were called Jack Daniels and Tom Collins. Tom was asking a lot of questions about that time. And being 18 years of age, he still had a curfew. We were fortunate because he was a designated driver. That was fortunate for some of the other members. He kept them awake at the time. Fortunately, he was. His conversation was like, what is the plot of Gilligan's Island? I think at that time it was Gilligan's Island. So he kept a lot of our older members awake at that time. And but for 3 years, I had a babysit. I didn't know it was a babysitting him, but I had to keep an eye on him because he was moving around from table to table, trying to find out, making sure that that drink wasn't, an alcoholic beverage. So finally, when Tom made it to age 21, boy, all bets were off at that point in time right now. But we moved along. We had a lot of fun at that point in time. 7 years later, I sort of moved away from the club. And I left the Apple Valley Optimist Club. I went into nursing at that time. Tom and I, we kept contact. Our contact basically was through the March of Dimes. I had the opportunity of really being one of the many people that did the walk that Jack talked about, that 26.5-mile walk, and quite impressed with Tom's walk. As the years went on, one of the reasons when I went into nursing, I had saw the wear and tear that Tom's body was starting to take from his some of his lifestyle changes that he had. A couple times I've been out with Tom back, and this is when I was still drinking, but it's amazing. It's amazing. Tom, when he had his Jack talked about his dog, when Tom's dog. You ever seen Tom drunk when he was trying to whistle for his dog? Here, Boots! Here, Boots! I know, it's amazing. Tough guy, though. When he was drunk, he had no fear. He had no fear. Up in the high desert, Bob, up in the high desert, we have a rattlesnake up here called the Mojave Green. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Probably one of the deadliest rattlesnakes you'll ever see in the world. One night I saw Tom drunk and everything, and he had the Mojave Green in his hand, and he was trying to break a stick that was Mojave Green. He was so drunk on that. But that was probably only a couple of times, Tom. It was only a couple of times. And I know that you were drinking for medicinal purposes. Medicinal purposes. I really tried to have you going on that aspect of it there. But as I became a nurse, what I did was, when I became a nurse, I realized, I tried to tell Tom, he said, you know what, you need to take better care of your body. So I actually hooked him up with my doctor. My doctor, we brought him in for an exam. Tom hadn't been to a doctor in many, many years because, his body was made of steel. Actually, seriously. You look at from the waist on up, Tom, rock hard. It's just the problem with the waist down that he's having problems with. And just maybe one part there. I can't do that. I'm not talking right told him, he said, Tom, he says, to live the best life, he says, you need to give up drinking, you need to give up women, you need to, quit partying late for the best life. Tom says, I don't deserve the best life, Doc. What's the second best? Later on, I was looking in Tom's chart. I was looking through the chart, and what interesting was I found a letter from the Smithsonian Institute. And I've never had a patient where I had a patient with a medical record with a letter from the Smithsonian Institute. And it read, Dear Mr. Schibusch, we have the livers of 5 dinosaurs that are in better shape than yours. we kept on file your chart all this time, Tom. 1 year, these walks, okay, Tom has scaled back these walks a little bit, but 1 year after a long walk, what happened was Tom had developed, after the walks, he developed several knots. I wouldn't call him a knothead, but he's not. Seriously, the body becomes a knot. And 1 year we had to put him in the hospital. And the hospital that I work at, okay, it's run by nuns sometimes. It has not run by nuns anymore, but it was run by nuns at the time. And one day the nun came in to get Tom's room and she said, Tom, do you have insurance? Tom said, I don't have any insurance. Well, do you have any money in the bank to pay for your bills? And Tom says, no, I don't. Well, do you have any family members that can help you pay for the training? Tom says, well, I have one sister, and she's a spinster nun. And I got all indignant. She said, well, nuns aren't spinsters. Nuns are married to God. And Tom said, well, good. Somebody go to my brother-in-law. He's wearing clean underwear. And it's on backwards. All I'm saying is on backwards. Yeah, you told me earlier. Yeah, you skipped mass today. Let's go ahead and make sure I'm here. Oh, yes. Oh, he's not drinking at all? Yeah. Drinking up. So all he had, and like you said, he loved beef peas. You know how Susie said he loved peas. Loved peas. Great. Oh, the speakers? Great. He's doing a great job. He did a great match at ceremonies. She says, I was talking to Bob outside. We had a chance to get a picture taken today. My wife earlier on, I was talking to her about Chris, and he was in Chris's, doing well. He's making $1 gazillion on his films and Unstoppable with Denzel Washington. And we were talking a little bit about he was going to do a movie with George Clooney, and he said, Chris says that you look a little like George Clooney. It's a nice compliment that I look a little like George Clooney. Yes, that's it. No. Oh, last thing, yes. One last thing, he is wearing a tie for the first time in his life. He's wearing a tie. Yes, since he graduated from high school, he's wearing a tie, fellas. Yes, he is. You look, yeah. Well, I got Gladys. We talked 6 times today. I gotta go. I know. Yeah, Gladys. I gotta go. People here. Yeah, Gladys. Yeah, Gladys. Yeah, gotta go. Okay. I'll tell everybody bye. Okay, you take care of me. Bye-bye. Sorry about that. Tom, Susie said hi also too. So, you're welcome. What I gotta say in serious thought, what I do know as a nurse is this is a guy who should be with us. Okay?
Good evening. I know you're all tired, and the last thing you need is some actor up here to indulge himself with his own comedy, so I'll try to be brief.
Are you intimating anything better?
Say again?
Are you intimating that other actors have been up there?
No. The other actors were great. Anyway, you know, you ask yourself, what do you say about a man that's loved and respected and revered by everyone? I can start by saying that it sure as hell isn't this guy. I mean, how do you get a name like Tom Schibush? Somebody said.
Your mother's name was Gladys.
That's a little ironic. Tom Schibush, based on his own activity, you know. But his mom said when he came out of the bush, she looked down there and she said, "Oh my God." She had to have an episiotomy that you never want to have. That head came out so big. The big old football head came out, and she looked at that poor kid and said, either he's part of Eric Estrada or married to an alien, something wrong. That's when Tom began his philanthropic work. He was on this poster for a long time for birth control. Tom was always kind of a runt, as somebody said earlier. He was a small little guy. And when he was about 10 years old, he used to work at the dog pound here. People would come in and look for dogs and then look at Tom and say, "How big does he get?" You know, Tom, he always asks Robert, and Robert's been so kind to do his March of Dimes walks in the past, and I've done a few of them. One time, the very first time he asked myself and my wife to come, Marlene, who was an Olympic track and field athlete, and she will never come again. And I said, "Why? Why don't you want to do the March of Dimes?" She said, "Are you kidding me? Tom doesn't know the first thing about a stopwatch. They measure the March of Dimes when you walk with Tom with a calendar." I won't tell you any more of these corny jokes, but I'm just going to share with you a couple stories. You know, my life, I've touched almost every key on the piano board. I won't bore you with that. It's been interesting highs and lows and fascinating stories that test your heart, your soul, and your belief and your integrity. You know, I've always been kind of amazed at this guy. You know, he just is always there with his heart and his spirit. I used to have a little airplane. It was called a Navion, and I was real proud of it. It looked like a little fighter jet, had a cockpit that slid back, and Robert used to have this really cool old Porsche, and we thought we were pretty cool when these things were. And it didn't have any paint, because I took the paint off, because paint has weight and slows an airplane down. I took all the interior out, because I didn't want any interior, because that slowed it down. Put a big engine in it, changed the angle of the incidence of the wings, three-bladed prop, and I flew into Cedar City, and some guy in Cedar City come running out and said, "Hey, aren't you the guy from Chips, Larry Wilcox?" "Yeah." "What are you doing flying this old piece of shit?" Dude. So that was my airplane. And so when the guy says he has an airplane, there's an art of obfuscation there, obviously. What he doesn't say is more important. So I used to fly that old Navion up here to Victorville. You know, in your youth, sometimes you have this voracious appetite to do things and excel and beat metrics. And how many people did you see, Tom? And how many did you interview? And how many people did you sell? And how many people did you do one-on-ones? And all those report cards of all those businesses that we were going to grow to the biggest thing in the world. And I'll tell you one story. One night we were out in Victorville, and it was dark and foggy, and Tom, maybe Robert was with us this one time, and they told me that this guy, Tom's going to come with him. Tom? Who's Tom? Tom Schibusch, he's coming, he's a good guy, and he has a lot of network, and so, okay, and I says, can he, you know, my airplane, I took all the steps off, because that's parasitic drag, so if you can't jump up on my wing, you can't get in my airplane. And so it's too bad, you know, and my wife used to get really mad at that. So here comes Tom, and I see him hobbling out there to my airplane. I'm going, oh my God. You know. So now I'm looking around at the airport, and the airport security's looking at us because we got to lift this jackass up on the wing. We get him up on the wing about half up there, and now he can't get up off the wing. And it looks like we're carrying some drunk into the airplane. We get him up. He puts one leg over into the cockpit because you have to slide the cockpit, and he can't lift his other leg up because it's cramping by then. Tom, you got to get in this airplane. You're going to fly with one leg hanging out of the cockpit. We finally got him in, and we went on many meetings on that old airplane together and met a lot of great people. Recently, I had this issue back in Florida that, very big issue. I'm not going to tell you. I had paid a commission to a gentleman that I thought was a legal commission. And for all your edification, make sure who and how you pay commissions. Commissions, if you pay to a pension plan, and somebody mentions that what they're going to do with that commission is called a kickback. And I told my attorney, well, that's how we always pay it. It's commissions. You know, that's a kickback, and that's illegal. And that's 20 years in prison. So if you'll plead guilty, Larry, you'll get 5 years. I started crying, literally. But I won't wallow in all of that. To make a long story short, they let the bad felon here off on probation. So I asked Tom to come back and be one of my many witnesses. We had 60 letters of exemplary life and contributions that we've done to society. Poor Tom jumped in an airplane at midnight, flew all the way to Florida on my behalf. My heart cries and weeps, and we're so grateful for what he did. I went before that judge and I cried like a little boy and apologized because you don't go to court and tell them you didn't know anything. Ignorance isn't a plea. And Tom got up there and gave a great speech on my behalf, as did some other people that flew in. And it was a wonderful expression of something that I was taught in the Marine Corps in Vietnam called loyalty, semper fidelis, always faithful. And so I say to you people, I won't bore you anymore this evening. I thank you all for giving your charity tonight to Tom's heart and the representation of your spirit to mankind. And tomorrow we may not be here. Next week we may not be here. I love that old Christian saying, you can't govern your country. You can't govern your state. You can't govern your city. Sure as hell can't govern anything if you can't govern yourself. And so I ask all of you to continue to govern yourself. I thank you for being here this evening. And I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be Tom's friend. And anything that I can do for him in the future, in any piano key that I can step on behalf of you people, I'll do it. God bless you. Thanks for your evening.
That's great. All right, I think we're winding down here. I think we have one more. We have an award. Two awards to give. We will, well, I want to, when we're through with this, I will close things up and we will then discuss. Oh, we'll give him a rebuttal, but we'll wait till the very end. Right? This song is, no, the rebuttal is now.
One more thing, Robert. The doctor from Boron just came in. I don't know what that means.
Oh, he did?
Yes, what's that mean?
Well, I'm leaving. I've already told you what my feelings about a doctor from Boron. Okay, Mr. Schibusch. No, you can stay right in your seat. I think you look just fabulous. Now that you have a complimentary tie,
Hello? Okay, is the doctor from Boron a proctologist? I just asked you for even worse. Even worse. Hi, over there on the left side. I can't see you. How the heck do you rebut something like this? Most of the time people show up, and first of all, thank you very much for every person that's been in tonight. The Optimist Club, Ben, how long have we been around? 20 years less than Ben's been alive. Is that right? 43 years? Let me tell you why I joined the Optimist Club, because you're all here to support the Optimist Club and the programs that they do. Everyone in the Optimist Club, I was 15 years old, and I went to the service clubs for the very first time to talk about the March Times. And a guy named George Harney, the Lions Club. Anybody remember George and the Lions Club? Looked like Kenny Rogers. He took me to the Optimist Club. Said, well, they're the other guys. But show up, see how they are. And they all drank and they smoked. They told funny jokes. They'd all been married at least twice. Remember that, Chris? So, anyway, they were a lot of fun. But I was in high school, and I got offers to join the Rotary Club because they're supposed to be the rich guys in town. And then I got invited to the Kiwanis Club because they do all kinds of good stuff. Lions Club helped the blind. Sir Optimist all had babies. Thanks, Sir Optimist. But the Optimist Club drank, smoked, tell funny jokes, and they offered me an opportunity to join. And they met in the evening. I still went to high school. So on my 18th birthday, I joined the Optimist Club. And here's really why. From the time I first spoke to them, there was about 2,200 Optimist Clubs in the United States and Canada. And I get letters from the ladies or the gentlemen. There wasn't any ladies in Optimists at that time. But every single Optimist Club in the United States and Canada supported me for my March Times walk. And I thought, even if it was $25 or $50, thank you very much for what you do. They all sent letters with a little note and a check to help me with my March Times walk. And as you read our creed when we leave, it all says friend of youth. And I thought, damn it, I'm a friend of youth. I'm only 16 years old. And you all help me. The whole United States of America and Optimist Club were my friend. So, tonight, in support of the Optimist Club, thank you very much for being here tonight. Yes, I didn't thank everyone for being here tonight, but all the Optimists, please stand up, because if you weren't in the Apple Valley Optimist Club, or the Victor Optimist Club, or the Barstow Optimist Club, then help this out. Please stand up. You've been around for a long time, Chris, you should stand up. Chris has our flag, shed. Is that a good word for that word?
That's a good word.
Shed. Chris, he's a nice guy. At least I think so. On Hill Road, we have our flags stored at his, and we appreciate him. For all the people, thank you, Chris. My Sir Optimist friends that showed up, and for everyone that's made a difference. You know, most of the time when something like this happens to a person, they're in a box and they're not talking back. They're cold and they're having prayers said over them, or flowers, or whatever the deal is. And that's kind of a scary deal. This is pretty ironic. I know that I got fat, Randy, Jay, Daddy, you don't have to tell me. Steve-O, you're an asshole too. I know I got fat, but 30 years ago I used to be a skinny guy. And isn't this kind of overwhelming to have something like this happen for a person that every day, I don't do anything very important, but I try to do something every day. So I would encourage each one of you to do something nice every single day. And then, Angie, I'm going to point you out because this is my boss. Would you stand up? On behalf of the Daily Press, our whole Daily Press team is represented here tonight, even if it's only a small group. But to be able to make a difference on a regular basis, to make a difference in our community, thank you for letting me be me. That's probably not easy to do, huh? And Robert, it's not very often you get to come to a roast.
Especially a roast of you.
I know that. So, Carol, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my girlfriend, Carol. Thank you very much for all you do. Gentlemen, you have come under unprecedented circumstances in your life, and we all pray for you to get better. And so thank you very much for being here tonight. Jeff Hills, you're still ugly. And you bullshit more than I do. And everyone knows it. And I like that. Randy, you did a fantastic job.
Is there a wedding on the horizon?
From a guy that's been married like 5 or 6 times, I don't want any bullshit from you about him. Just shut up and sit there. Jeff Hills, before you tell him the same stories he's telling, just be quiet and be a nice guy. Just only this night. Not gonna go. Who have I forgot? Randy. I've known Randy an awful long time. His mom made my Letterman's jacket. And maybe just for the people that remember Rosie Morton, he used to do all the Letterman's jackets. When we only had 2 high schools, Victorville and Apple Valley. I dropped my Letterman's jacket off, and she said that'll be up 3 or 4 months. Jerry Kurtz, are you with me on this one? We had one person do a Letterman's jacket. I dropped my Letterman's jacket off with my friend Joe Bell. Randy, you're with me. Joe was a good kid. About 8 days later, Randy's mom calls back and says, Tommy, your Letterman's jacket's done. I'm 125 days or better with my Letterman's jacket. There's only one student body president, and he should have his jacket ready first. Thanks, Rosie Morton.
My mom passed away up in August, and I think she's hearing this tonight, Tom. Thank you.
Terry was the most boring history teacher I ever had. He might be the only history teacher I ever had, but he's still the most boring. And there's way too many people, as you can tell tonight, for me to ever thank for being part of something like this, because how many roasts have many of you been? Could you raise your hand if you've been to a roast before? Besides mine. Isn't that pretty amazing? So, I would like to just say thank you very much. The Optimist Club of Apple Valley works very hard. Tom Cherry, would you stand up because you outdressed me tonight? And I think you're an asshole for it. And you wore a real tuxedo. And Chuck Mills, who's been an optimist forever. Ben and Sandy cutting up busted grass. Really, really have done their part. Joe and Cindy are part of the Victorville Club. They need your love and attention. Julie, where are you? Stand up. Thank you, Julie. Where's Vicki Murray? Sit down. That's a bad commercial. So, for all of you that took the time to be here tonight, it'd be overwhelming for me to thank you. I'm just glad I'm not cold and I'm not quiet. Angie, I'm buying lipstick, chapstick, so I can keep my job, because if I can't talk, I wouldn't have a job. Thank you all for being here. Some way, each one of you have played a very integral role in my life to be my friend. And to be able to say thank you and to comment on all that would take a long period of time. And so I would like, as my final statement, I would like everyone to raise their hand that's ever donated to my walk for the March Times. You ever donated to the March Times? Has anybody ever walked with me for the March Times? Has anyone ever had a donut with Larry or Robert? If you haven't done that, would you be willing to? Yes. On April 30th. For my Don Brown, just sit there with your necktie choked up around your neck. On April 30th, I'd like to tell all of you it'll be my 35th walk for the March Times. Here in Victorville. And after April 30, if I drop dead, it'll be okay with me, because not very many people better party in their behalf to raise money for a good cause Ben, we raised about $8,000 tonight. Okay, and if you love the Optimist Club and you want to help kids, we'd love you to join our club. We meet, a lot of the guys are old, they're boring. And Josh dropped out, I don't usually drop him. You know, I'm not picking on Josh, but he lost all his hair, so he kind of acts like an old guy and he dropped out, but he should be part of us. And, but we'd love you to join the Apple Valley Optimist Club, and what do? We make a difference for kids, and we make a difference in our community. So thank you. Robert, thank you very much for tonight. Stand up. Really interesting, you know, we talked about on the radio the other day, a kid with a gimp. I don't know how the hell he came up with that, but anyway, came up with a kid with a gimp who, when the elevator doors opened, I met this guy, and he used to be on the Bold and Beautiful. And he was the Beautiful. Yeah, I thought Bold. Wow. And you know, it's kind of funny when you meet people. He introduces me. We get to know each other, he helps me out, and we have been the best of friends ever since.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to thank you and your wife, and your daughter, Katie, and Chris,
said their best.
and your daughter who swapped, you know, anyway,
The dog, Daisy.
Daisy swaps his ears, and she's a really great friend. And Larry Wilcox, thank you for your extra effort tonight. Jimmer, particularly, we all love you. We're rooting for you. You're in our prayers. Thank you for
Just before I surrender the microphone to the rest of the thing, I realized that I hadn't said something nice about Tom. When we had instructions to keep it clean, which you did pretty well, and just say something nice about Tom. As difficult as that is. But yeah, Tom is a very special friend, and I had no idea when those elevator doors opened and this guy with his own description of funny walk came down with a smile that reached from one wall to the other. And as we all know, Tom is a very difficult person to say no to ever have a frown on your face when you're talking to Tom. Because I've seen Tom in the best of circumstances and what some of us would think would be the worst of circumstances. I heard Jack say that he went on a 26-mile walk with him. Well, by the time I met Tom, he wasn't doing that anymore. The longest walk was 12 miles, which we did. I think that was my first walk, which they started at 8 in the morning. And I don't know why, Tom, the first walk with you seems to be the hottest walk. As Jack walked, it was about over 100, and I didn't wear flip-flops. But we started at 8, and we ended at 4. And I was exhausted. Tom was exhausted, and I will say, for the last mile or so, poor Tom was falling down about every 200 yards. Now, the first time it happened, I'm going, oh my God. Because when Tom says timber, I mean, this boy falls. And I'm going, oh my God. Well, you know, Tom, smile on his face, he's laughing, and he pulls himself up and wants very little assistance. We walk another 200 yards. And this all the way to the end, I'm saying, can we put your car down? No. He finishes it up. And it's kind of heart that Tom has. And, you know, we get gifts when we start this life, and each person has different gifts. And it's up to all of us to realize what those gifts are and exploit them, and not to spend time crying about the stuff that you didn't get. Tom never cried about any of that. It was only given that great heart that he was born with. makes him a very, very special person. You are all very, very lucky to have somebody like him in your community. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you so much, Robert. You're still alive, huh? That's good. Before we do the presentation, we have to have a quick check through the room here. Jack, you got to tell me, how the hell did you stand being in a car with this man for that length of time?
I can't.
That's Secret Service.
I noticed that.
Okay, you want to tell a quick joke?
Jack and I, Ken, you can stand there as the Secret Service so I can count. Jack and I bought a bunch of church views. Shirley was with us, and she's the only honest witness between Jack and I. We went to Mountain Home, Idaho. We come back, and we have a bowling ball polisher and a church organ. Remember that, Jack? Jack calls the Daily Press. This isn't a commercial. And he wants to run an ad for classified advertising. Polish your balls and play with your organ. Call Jack. And they turn us down. So he calls back and he says, well, can I play with my organ and play with my balls? And they said, are you the gentleman that just called back a few minutes ago? Ed Donner and Abe Abercrombie are my witnesses, even though Ed is now dead. But we never did so on a classified advertising in the Daily Press. Polish your balls and play with your organ. Call Jack.
Tom would like to hear the greatest song in the high desert that Randy Andrew has wrote by himself, or his roast.
Well, we have a presentation first, okay?
Well, you know he was. Tom asked me to do this song. Yeah, did you remember? Are you that drunk?
Chris, did you give him $2.50?
Let's do the presentations first.
Oh, okay. You want to do the presentation?
Okay, we were going to have President Obama do this, but he was very busy. So we got somebody that has absolutely nothing to do. President George W. Bush.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be here. You know, I'm Sergeant J. And we get time, we go way back. Well, maybe not that far back. In fact, I never met you. Wait, I'm stuck. There. Thank you. But anyway, Tom, we have something to talk to. Our last name, Andrew Bush. But don't tell Laura. Good night, everybody. God bless our troops, and God bless America.
Robert, would you come up?
I thought I could proceed.
This is what, oh, Bush stuck his butt in the bush.
And got the mother too. Get the hell pick him out.
Okay, this is for you.
Oh, well, thank you very
For
much.
Chip.
Photo op.
United States.
Everybody with a photo, a camera, come up, get the photo up. With the president.
be some backwards underwear.
You ever wear this hat, buddy? What does it say, buddy?
It says, Robert, I roasted Tom, and it was well done. Big here, you play my organ, and and my put that on your internet.
Okay, Mr. Schibush, do you want to stand up or would you prefer to sit?
We're not gonna argue with the FBI.
Okay. Where's the...
Photo op. Photo op.
Tom, look up your photo op, got it.
Hold on, look up, Tom, look up, Tom.
Wow.
Have any of you seen Tom's trunk?
I haven't seen my trunk.
Okay. Is it full with junk and plaques? He's got more plaques than God has green apples. So we got him a barbecue thing for that party that Jack Bales is going to coordinate at his house this summer.
Here, Dad. Yay.
Let's give a big hand to President Bush.
Hold on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what an evening we've had. This has been absolutely fantastic.
Two more
What?
things.
Oh.
Number one, the centerpiece is on the table. You can see Tom's birthday is November 28th, I don't have my glasses.
1950. He's right, 90.
Okay, whichever at the table has the closest birthday to Tom's, it's the centerpieces.
No, actually, 62, right? Tom?
Yeah, the photos will be available out there.
61, 62. 1962.
Okay, the photos are going to be brought up here if you want to purchase them. Cindy Walters, would you come on up and lead us in the Optimist Creed, please? And then when Cindy's done with that, Randy will do our closing song. I hope everybody had a great time. We raised a lot of money for the kids. If anybody wants to know where this money goes, my cell phone was on Facebook, it was everywhere. Give me a call and we'll be more than glad to give you a breakdown on how that money was spent. Cindy, come on up. Oh yeah, and we've got, Terry Kurtz is kind enough to get somebody to videotape this whole thing. If anybody wants to purchase a video of the roast, let Terry Kurtz or one of us know, and we'll put your name on it and get a mail.
I want to get the spotlight on the singer.
Somehow it only seems your latest Brooklyn schemes. Take a trip down south and still you never shut your mouth. How common that is. Thanks for the worry. When you have a conversation, you give too much information. The hardest question that you asked is what's your occupation? How confusing that can be. The money sometimes you borrow will never bring sorrow. For you don't pay every day.
Terry Kurtz Online was brought to you by Down Home Grill in Victorville on the corner of Bear Valley Road and Ridgecrest Road. Bid fast and last. World-class auctioneers. Zolu Quality Truck Body. Family owned and operated since 1954. The Bradco Companies, our area's longest standing full-service commercial brokerage firm. Iwanzak Law Firm. Trial lawyers for serious problems. And by the Community Table Restaurant in the Holiday Inn in Victorville. The Holiday Inn, favored destination for travelers and visitors to the Victor Valley. That's a wrap on this week's edition of Terry Kurtz Online. Thank you for hooking up with us this time around. We hope you'll catch us again next week for your Terry Kurtz Online report. Thanks again for watching.